call the meeting to order. We'll start with a prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, and then roll call. Dear God, we pray for your Spirit to lead us each step of this year. We ask for your wisdom, for your strength and power with which to guide our decisions. We pray for your protection over our families, friends, and members of our military. We ask that you would provide for the needs of our residents, that they shall prosper. Help us to be generous, kind, and look to the need of others. It is in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. May we have roll call, please?
Baker.
Here.
Bassett.
Here.
Barth.
Here.
Beverly.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Thank you. You have the January 15th regular council meeting minutes in the packet, and you have January 29th special council meeting in the packets. Are there any questions, additions, or corrections?
I move we approve both minutes as written.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Written roll call, please.
Baker.
Yes.
Bassett.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Beverly.
Yes.
Barth.
Yes.
Thank you. You have the bills in your packet, and I believe I saw a couple extra on the table.
Yep. The extra one on one side is the final bill for the Clearview water, which the village is paying for. And on the other side are all of our retainages that were all deposited in the bank today.
Does this sheet include these extras that everybody wants? Good deal.
When you say they were deposited in the bank today,
We have to put the retainage in an interest-bearing account.
oh, I thought it already was.
No, only when we get the final bill.
Okay.
And I was wondering, I see on the appreciation dinner, how many did you have attend? Out of-
40?
Out of,
40.
It was pretty bad.
how many was invited? What is the
All the volunteers, council, full-time,
village
part-time
workers?
employees.
You don't have a number on, we were talking about it before the meeting on how many is employed by the village.
We sent out about 100 W-2s, 110.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yep, it is. Does anyone have any questions about the bills?
Jim, you're okay with those, that last page on the bills?
One, the handout?
Yeah. You're okay?
Mhm.
Okay. I move we approve the bills.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Jones.
Yes.
Beverly.
No.
Barth.
Yes.
Bassett.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Okay. Well, next on the agenda is for me to read a proclamation. Whereas February 1st to the 28th, 2018 has been designated Career and Technical Education Month by the Association for Career and Technical Education, and whereas career and technical education offers students the opportunity to gain the academic, technical, and employable skills necessary for true career readiness. And whereas students in career and technical education programs participate in authentic, meaningful experiences that improve the quality of their education and increase student engagement and achievement. Whereas career and technical education provides students with career exploration opportunities earlier in their educational experience, which enables them to make informed and beneficial decisions about their academic coursework, as well as pursuit of established programs of study and career pathways. Whereas leaders from business and industry nationwide report increasing challenges related to the skills gap and connecting qualified professionals with available careers in critical and growing CTE-related fields, including healthcare, energy, advanced manufacturing, and information technology. And whereas career and technical education prepares students for these and other fulfilling careers by offering integrated programs of study that link secondary and post-secondary education and lead to the attainment of industry-recognized credentials. And whereas ensuring that employers have access to a qualified workforce is a crucial step in ensuring productivity among the business and industry communities as continued American economic growth and global competitiveness. Now therefore, I, Diane Collins, Mayor of the Village of Hicksville, do hereby proclaim February 1st to the 28th, 2018 as Career and Technical Education Month in Hicksville, and urge all citizens to become familiar with the services and benefits offered by the career and technical education programs in this community, and to support and participate in these programs to enhance their individual skills and productivity. And I was invited to Fort County Career Center for lunch on Friday, and I had the pleasure of having lunch with AJ Post, who's in a visual arts program, Edith Avalos, right? Was in a cosmetology program, and Kaylin Gieske in the veterinary assistance program. And they walked me to their classrooms, and we had a really nice visit together, and they're really nice kids. It was interesting. They all have part-time jobs, plus extracurriculars, so they're very busy. Nice kids. So then we'll go on to the boards and commissions report, which we have park board minutes from January 17th in the packet. And do you have anything to say, Mike, about that? Or Jim, you were there.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions? Okay.
Jim was there, were you?
Well, that's true, you couldn't make it.
Yeah, we didn't get that. Because what you see in the packet there, I know the Christmas tree crew had talked to us about possibly using the facility. They're working on hiring lifeguards for the summer and just keeping care of the maintenance and get ready for spring when it ever arrives, since we keep having cold weather.
And I see we're gonna have an Easter egg hunt this spring.
I've seen that.
That is great.
Is that something new?
No, it had always been done by the Hicksville Summer Playground Program in conjunction with the Community Service Center. And when, the whole thing just got dropped a few years ago. It was also United Way funds had played a part in it. We don't get United Way funds anymore. So it had just gone by the wayside just a few years ago. So I'm glad to see that it's being brought back.
I think the Wan family's been talking about that quite a bit. I know Corey brought it to our attention about hosting it at the park, and they've been saving eggs and getting eggs from different suppliers and really getting exciting about it, so.
Well, that's
I haven't
nice
heard
he
any more
brought
about
that
that,
up.
so
That's
yeah,
great.
they did.
I
For the
saw a
community.
flyer somewhere that it's gonna happen. So. And then we had beautification committee minutes. One of the things we were wondering about was if the farmer's market could continue at the First Church of Christ, and I did get permission for that today from the church. So the farmer's market is going to stay at the North Main Street location we were at last summer, and I think the residents like that real well. Then we'll go on to the Hicksville Union Cemetery minutes.
We met on the 24th, and we decided we're setting the date for the cleanup, and it's going to be posted in the newspaper February 21st and the 28th. And it's going to say, please remove all flower saddles and small memorials by March 8th, 2018. We cannot replace any items until after March 23rd, so the guys have time to do their cleaning. They're going to go in with, clean all of it really good, so we're really going to enforce it. So
Is they're gonna put in there this year, this really means we're gonna get rid of stuff
Yeah.
like, you know.
Stuff.
Uproar.
Yeah, this caused a lot of controversy
Right.
last year because people said they didn't know, or it had been said in the past, but it really wasn't done. Well, now it's really being done.
Yeah.
You need to have your stuff out of the cemetery by February 21st.
No.
No, March 8th?
March 8th.
March 8th to
March 8th.
18th.
Okay, that's the date it's going in the newspaper. Okay.
No, the 21st and the 28th is when it'll be in the newspaper.
Okay.
And then we're gonna meet again in April, the City Hall.
2 o'clock, April 18th, City Hall, if anybody wants to come.
That time might change, but.
It would be posted on the bulletin
Right,
board out
right,
front.
Right.
Anything else, Sheila?
Nope,
Okay.
Who are the three on the board now? Anybody new?
no.
Okay.
Dawn, Sheila, Sheila. And Zane. Zane's still the
Okay.
president.
Okay.
I thought he was gonna be here.
Okay, then we'll go on down to, are there any other boards and commission people here? All righty. Then we'll go to the council committee report.
Want to talk about this police and fire committee, Mayor?
Yeah, there's a couple minutes in here. What particular thing do you want to talk about?
Well, the first one, the one that I get rattled every time somebody stops me uptown is this new truck that we want to buy, this new pickup truck. And it states in here, Scott and Bruce said they have already have it in the budget, and it was approved last year by the finance committee. Scott and Bruce also said it was too late and it's already in their budget. We need a new four-door pickup truck at that fire hall.
Like you read the next?
Yeah, keep
We met
reading.
again, and I'm sorry, I just sent that out email today. I got it in email today. Because still wasn't in favor of the fire department purchasing a train truck, and the chief and Bruce both said they weren't gonna purchase one.
I did not get that.
Try to circle real quick.
Would you, Eric, would you like to highlight your
Yeah,
meeting minutes?
We had, actually, we've had 3 meetings since then. The one that, I guess the minutes that are in there right now are for January 17th. The big one was Chief Kramer was filling out some grant paperwork, or he wanted us to approve filling out some grant paperwork, which would cost them $400 even if they didn't get the grant. But if they would get the grant, that allowed the fire department to get 18 new air packs. It's a federal grant, and it would save the village a lot of money. Right now, the one bottle is about $975 each, and if they can get this grant, they only have to pay 5% of the total cost, which would typically cost $111,000. But if the grant goes through, instead of paying $111,000, they'd only have to pay approximately $6,000 total. And so the committee unanimously was in favor of doing that due to the cost savings and having all new equipment. And then the topic of the truck got brought up, which got brought up the next one also. And then on January 31st, we met and we talked about Kramer's looking into starting up a first responder program. He's talking with the firemen to see who's willing to be on that schedule and looking to find out when classes will be. He can get a class schedule also. And then also looking into purchasing in the future. We need to start thinking about a new fire truck. Right now our fire truck is 27 years old. And usually about 25 years is a good, you got your money's worth out of them. And so it's time to start looking. It's too late for this year to get the grant paperwork filled out, and you'd be filling it out with the same company out of Houston, Texas. And I did have that backwards in there. They would like to get one that's a custom chassis instead of a commercial chassis, but you can't just get one, next day. Sometimes it takes 2 to 2.5 years to get one, so they need to start budgeting and getting the paperwork filled out, hopefully to get some grant money, so it's not all out of pocket. Also was gonna check into lease pricing and interest rates. I'm not sure if you had a chance to get any of that information yet, but if the village would be interested in possibly leasing a fire truck instead of having to pay all the money up front for one, because you're looking at $400,000 or $500,000 for a fire truck. So if you could, get like a 5-10 year lease on it where we're not paying all that money up front. So we're gonna look into that. And the next part, Chief Stickney had 2 candidates that were both really good candidates for a full-time police officer opening. We interviewed 2 candidates. They both did a really good job, and I'll let you speak about that when it's your time, but, well, we had a unanimous vote right off the get-go on which one we would really recommend approving, and the chief will talk about that here later on. And then after the chief left, we stuck around and we talked a little bit, and we thought you're doing a really good job and happy with everything. And I know you've been on probation, and we'd like to recommend taking you off probation. And so that's what I had in the last part of the report for the mayor. So it's for her to decide to do.
Yeah. I would move that we take Chief Stickney off of probation.
I would support the mayor's wishes.
I guess I would recommend that move.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Baker?
Yes.
Bassett?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Barth?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
And then we also met today before the meeting, but I'm not gonna get a whole lot into that, because I'm sure you guys will talk about it. About
Part of it, yeah.
part of it? Okay, well, we had a quick meeting before today, talking about a position that, we found out we have somebody we're gonna be losing from the village, going, taking a different job, and looking at finding a replacement and posting a job, and, so we talked with, both the chief EMS and fire chief about it, and so I'll have minutes for the next meeting for that, so. And that was everything, unless you guys have any questions for the police, fire, and EMS.
Any questions?
Can we talk about who's leaving, or you wanna wait on that?
I was gonna wait, I'm sure they're gonna say it.
Okay.
I don't wanna take it from them.
Thank you. Okay, you've been really busy along with the water sewer and
has been
refuge, yep.
fixed. I'll start mine. Water sewer's been very busy. We've met 3 times with Justin Kuhn and Tony Nicewander, just throwing some ideas out there. We've been to the health department with their McCary subdivision. They've been to the county. They've been to us before. We had talked about a run they could make clear up to the cemetery if they choose to do that. They kind of came back to us and said if we could help them out a little bit further with that, and with maybe helping pay for some of the infrastructure. Committee talked about that quite extensively, and we just don't see that not feasible. That's usually part of the contract with developers' job to do that. Like I said, a lot of ideas were back and forth. You'll see some kind of generalized meeting minutes. They came to the last meeting on February. We had 3 meetings. We had January 22nd, January 31st. They presented a package kind of to us that we weren't really in favor of. And that was their proposal on how they could maybe refund the village if we were to help them. And that was all pending on how many homes they could build and actually construct, and many people building lots. In doing so, as a committee, again, we threw an option out there of maybe we could have them tie into Haver Drive, which was a little bit closer to them, run that route, and then we'd have to definitely look at upgrading our Clearview lift
We'd have to do a
station.
complete rebuild on Third
Oh,
lift
absolutely.
station.
And that brought up other ideas with if any other type of development, and we know that, they know that, we presented that to them. At 85% capacity after our last study with, when we had the separation done out there. Like I said, that would be if, down the future, if LeBar ever took off, or anybody bought the property behind Haver Drive, started building, homes and lots and everything else. So if we were gonna redo the Clearview, that would definitely have an impact on that lift station. We had, and I told him if I had met with them that Friday just to present our side of what we thought would be fair maybe to the village, and that would be, they had to maintain, build their run from Haver Drive to their subdivision, and that would be on their end. What we could do is charge them a certain amount per household, and I think I said in there $60, but they're trying to get concrete numbers so they can decide on what impact they have on the lot prices and how much they would have in their development. I said, none of this is set in stone, this is all just talk. It would have to go through council, if this was something they would be willing to do or wishing to do. And then they decided that they wanted to get some concrete numbers through engineering and architectural design cost, and see if that was even feasible in their end to do, if they tied into us and they paid for the whole thing. So at this point, I would like to, if they're willing, when they come back to council the next time, I think we should have a full council meeting They've been to the state, they've been to, like I said, the county, to us twice. I think we need to meet with them one-on-one to see
What happened to what he had all over Facebook about the 36 lots and the water and the wells and septics?
I don't know. They just come back to us. I don't read
the health
Facebook.
department's giving them some trouble on that.
Well, and we discussed that here, and I stuck up for it.
Yeah.
And now we're back to, let's see how much money the village can spend for something that's a couple miles out of town and is not gonna generate any money whatsoever for this town.
Yes, it will.
How?
I think it'll generate money for the town. People that move here will come in town and spend money here. They'll order food here. go to
Are you
groceries.
kidding me?
I agree with that.
You
I do.
believe that?
Yeah,
I do
I think
too.
you'll see them at the gas stations. I think you'll see them ordering food. The kids will be in the school district. I think multiple different
We'll
things.
get income
Getting gas at the gas station.
accepting sewage.
Well, I'll tell you
I-
what, if you're gonna allow them $60,
I don't like that idea.
then I'd like you to take my bill and pay the difference from the 60 on up, that I'm always $80 or $90 on mine.
And Ron, absolutely. I know what I pay, and I said the same thing you're saying right there. I said, this is just off. I said, they're
I
asking
don't think
for-
you people realize the money that has gotta be spent in this town. You just did all those big sewer separations.
Absolutely, we told them
You
that.
took everything out.
No, we did.
You took everything out of that big walk-through sewer. You're not even gonna have enough water to force the sewage through that thing. You can't believe the problems you're gonna have with these old 60 and 80-year-old sewers that we took all that water out of that used to keep them clean.
Flush them through, absolutely.
Now we don't have enough to flush them.
Well, we don't know that yet, do we?
Trust me, I've dug these sewers up since I was a little
And I
kid in
agree
this
with that,
town.
absolutely.
I know exactly which sewers will run and which won't. And we don't implement any of our sewer jets. They don't go out and, I mean, they're not on a schedule to hit everything every so often.
They
like
will
was
be, though.
planned.
They will be,
I've heard that story more times than Mother Goose has got it written.
but we just got it back from the shop too, and they will be used very aggressively,
I've heard it before.
especially like on the box, the box.
Clear
sewer.
back when we bought the yellow one. Oh, yeah, that thing's gonna be out every week, gonna have a map set up, gonna do her. Sets in the building, just sets in the building. Went and bought that big expensive one that we just spent another big bunch of money on, sets in the building. The only time it goes out is if something is plugged.
Jim and I have had that conversation, and I told him the history that you just repeated, and he plans to have that out on a regular schedule.
Well, I just don't, I mean, everybody's worried about taking care of those two guys out there. And I don't think you realize how much money's gonna be spent in this town coming up.
And if I can,
That's forced on us.
absolutely, we know that. Trust me. We have reiterated that time after time after time. I said, we're just getting started. We're into phase 1. We got ideas for phase 2, you know.
3,
And
you've got
3.
about
Well,
15 years
well,
left.
we've talked about that, Ron, you know. Phase 3 is one of the biggest part of our long-term control plan. And it's not something we really want to do in this town, I don't believe. But if we continually help separate the community, help rebuild the infrastructure that hasn't been touched in year after year after year, it's shot in many different streets. You know that. You said you dug in them. All that stuff, nothing lasts forever. Nothing. And it needs replaced, and if you're gonna replace it, you might as well spend the money now to do it right, so we don't have to address it 30, 40, you know, or 10 years from now. And they know that. We've reiterated that many, many times, and that's why now nor do I feel it's our responsibility as a community to help them pay for their infrastructure.
No.
That's on them. You know,
But
that's
you're
me
gonna,
personally.
me and Jim differ on this price, but you're gonna spend, I think you're gonna spend $800,000 to $1 million, $800,000 to $1 million to rebuild Clearview
Just
lift
Clearview
station.
lift. And we've ran those numbers, but we don't have, there's nobody out here that can physically say, you know, it's gonna cost this much money. I said if we rebuild it, we might as well rebuild it to handle that subdivision and or any other, quote, subdivision that happen out there. We need homes in this town. We need people to move to this town. If your town stays the same as it is,
You
it's
keep
not
saying
growing.
this town, you're exactly right, this town. Not something that's a couple miles out of town and nobody in it is paying the same taxes that everybody in this town is paying.
I like the idea of the housing addition, but I mean, later on for ordinance committee on the last one, it says in here from this day forward, you must be annexed in the village to have village utilities, and everyone voted yes for it, but it's kind of contradicting the housing initiative.
Absolutely.
Yes,
mean,
it
We did
is.
bring that up.
And you put a lot of money into changing the lift station and the cost to maintain it and everything else, and I don't like the idea of that $60 base fee, which is less than most people here in town what they pay. And what happens if we put all this money into it and they don't sell the lots or houses aren't
Well,
built?
nothing's guaranteed on their end too. They're just trying to get hard fact, but
Right.
they're trying to get hard fact ideas on what they can physically do.
Right.
And any businessman, that's a smart way to do it. They get hard facts.
Smart way to do it would have been to have a plat map, just like any other, but anybody else would have to put in an addition. You'd have a plat map, it would show what the sewers are, what the size are, what the flows are.
They're still trying to come up
They're
with a
still working
number.
on it.
Oh,
of-
absolutely,
of
they're
that
working on
lot,
it, but
so-
they're trying to get
We're not
outside of
promising
that
anything.
entity. No, nothing
We're
at
not-
all.
Sure looks like the bunch
No.
of
So the reason why.
Ron, you know better, we can't promise anything like, that's full council. And they want to actually come to council and talk about this directly, you know.
Can I
Yes,
explain where that $60 came from? Okay, because people out of town pay double rates for what.
Double base rate.
Base rate is $30 for unmetered. If you can't meter it, base rate is $30. Hence the double to 60.
Okay.
That's where that number came from. That's not set in stone. And that's where that number came from. Do I agree with it? No, I'm with you. I pay,
Will,
know.
I do too.
I pay close to $90 myself for sewer.
Just a starting point.
So, but that's where that number came from, just so you have a clarification, we just didn't pull that out of the hat.
Well, I guess in all the buying and selling and wheeling and dealing equipment stuff, I always start way up here, and then I come down to here. You guys are starting down here, it gets kinda hard to go back up.
Oh, no,
Nothing's been
Because when this
approved.
came through a year ago, when we talked about this, it was $100 a month, I think.
103.
Yeah, it was
No.
$100, $103 a month, and it was gonna be on the other side of
Right.
18, and they're gonna be all gravity fed instead of doing anything with the lift station.
Right. It's still, no, it still had to be
Yeah.
lift
Well, I mean, it
station.
was gravity fed for.
It won't be the
That
village's
option.
lift station.
Correct.
That
Commissioner's gonna
option's
help
still
pay for
out
that.
there. We gave them that option still.
And that option, like I said,
That's still out there too, so.
Okay.
I feel it's our job as a committee to talk to these entities and kind of look at some different ideas and plans. When something is concrete, we bring it to council, we vote on it, yay or nay. I said, this might not, council might, none of us might not like this idea. I don't know. But I said I would at least present, I gotta present our minute meetings to council
Right.
and their proposal, that's all I'm doing, or the committee's doing. And then our next meeting, if they're willing to talk and negotiate or look at anything they may need to do, will come and speak to us as a whole.
The only thing that I'm seeing is what your committee is proposing to them. I'm not,
well, they've
I'm
just,
missing something.
they have
No,
just
they
worked
brought it-
really
It's in there. They
hard
brought it. They brought it.
to come up with something that
I don't know where it is.
might,
It's in the
Exhibit A.
yeah,
So, if we
nothing
could
set
do
in
this,
stone.
Nothing. And they said they want to present this to, or talk to council about it down the road, and I said, well, gives you some things to look at. Us look at it there, so.
That's what they're.
We were trying to think of everything too, and
Proactive.
it was made so very clear to them what our priorities are, and that's the EPA mandates. But at the same time, if you think 20 years from now, 30 years from now, I probably won't be around, but that could easily be annexed out there. Hicksville could easily grow that much, and we're also trying at the same time to be proactive and look at things in a way that we don't want to just build this to put a Band-Aid on it and fix this problem right now. We don't want people in 20 years saying, well, why didn't they do this? So we were kind of looking at it like, like LeBar. What if LeBar did develop? And, even without LeBar developing, Clearview lift station's gonna need attention here.
Right.
You know
Right.
that LeBar, which was platted, everything done,
It's in-
accepted,
It's in town, it's annexed.
yep, except he turned it back to farm ground. It's no longer a housing addition.
True,
The zoning and everything got changed back.
but it's easy to change the zoning.
Yeah, but
They
how
could always
long's it
change it
laid out
back.
there as that addition and nothing.
Right, yeah, I agree, yeah. But,
It's still platted in the individual lots, though. If you look on the tax card, it's still got lot numbers.
at this point, we don't know what they're going to do.
Right.
We really don't.
But we'll
So-
have a final vote.
Yeah.
It's good to discuss
They
it.
want to bring it.
It's
They
good
want
to
talk
discuss
us
it.
and bring it to full council.
The committee has worked so hard. I really thank you for all the hard work and trying to put your heads together and come up with some way to benefit the village. So,
And switching topics and all that, real quick, just Whirler, and I think with part of our contract, Mike Bailey had sent out a letter to all the downtown businesses not to use the front receptacles in the sidewalks. That's for public use. And in doing so, they've asked people to take their garbage either, have their own receptacle in their own. I spoke with Michelle Whirler. Right now, any commercial building downtown could have a separate contract with a dumpster or whatever. I said, would they offer, or could they offer smaller, some of the companies downtown don't generate a lot of trash. Could they do a small tote like what the residents have? And they said they do that for cities. They are picked up on the cycle of the resident, during that area when they're picked up. But they could offer them a smaller tote that the commercial businesses could use, put it out back when the rest area and garbage is picked up. But that would be a contract between the commercial business and Whirler, nothing to do with the city. Nothing to do with the city contract. And then also with the city contract, if we were to use it exclusively with all our dumpsters, because I think right now we have a couple that are with another vendor, but they would include those in our contract at no extra cost. And I think something with the contract's not written up that way. Maybe, that's what Michelle had mentioned to me. She goes,
I
I
think
didn't
we
know why we
addressed-
didn't take advantage of that offer in the beginning.
I don't remember that.
So-
Commented or something.
Yeah, but I think, and there was a couple of them that we don't use. And then they would also said they would help at the spring cleanup at the cemetery. They could maybe bring a dumpster out there for that use as disposal. So, that was it.
thank you. We will go on to the ordinance committee report.
Okay, which that is myself, Larry Ridgway, and Ron Beverly. And James was at the meeting, and we wanted to make a few ordinances of digging in the, one was on digging in the right-of-way of the property. You have to show and proof of insurance and get a permit. And the other one was the sign for the park, stating the hours of the park. And we decided to have it close at 11. Everybody but Ron Beverly wanted to close at 10. That's for the summer, and then the winter we would have dusk to dawn. And then the other one was, Eric already mentioned that from this day forward, you must be annexed into the village to use the village utilities. We all voted yes on that. And I sent them to Troy to see
I
what.
started, yeah, the one thing that I know for sure, just from past dealings other places, is people that already have access to sewer, you can't shut them down just because they don't annex. Water, you can and that's what they were doing over in Defiance, was sending letters out there on Spruce Street to all those businesses out there and said, hey, unless you annex in, even though we're charging you 2.5 times the rate or whatever, as of this date, unless you've started annexation proceedings, we're gonna shut you off. It's perfectly allowable, and I don't know that they ever shut anybody off, because I think the threat was successful and most people decided to annex, and one person decided to get a huge water tank system outside their business so that they didn't have to. But, so you definitely could do that, there's no doubt about that, and that wouldn't require, it may require an ordinance, it may just require making a decision, and, the issue with it is, if it applies to one, it applies to all, type of thing. You can't pick and choose and say, well, but they're good citizens, good neighbors or whatever. We don't want to enforce it on them, but these people out here we do, or these new people. I think if it's good for,
We'll take that factory.
yeah, we'll take that factory, but we're not gonna, take this guy that wants to build his house or whatever and do this. So you definitely can do that. On the park hours, I personally think that doesn't need to be an ordinance. I think probably, quite frankly, this board could pass it, or could be part of the park board regulations or minutes or whatever, just decide, here's what it is, and put the sign up and enforce it.
So, okay, so the,
So once the sign's
Police
up,
have a
once the
right.
village makes a determination, and the
Police have a
once the
right.
village makes a determination, and the sign's up, then the village can enforce it
And we
as
cite them.
trespassing. It'd be trespassing at that time. They're there after a marked time.
I'm trying to think if people go down and walk early in the morning when it's still dark.
They do.
That's what I thought. Well, to comment about item number 3, about getting annexed into the village if someone wants utilities, you might recall, that came about from Jerry Hayes in one of our meetings, and he, said that that's what other communities do, and he thought that, might be good for Hicksville, and it sounded like a good idea. But it does contradict, what we're trying to do right now, in trying to, see if Mark Carrio's place is gonna work out, but,
Mayor, I have a question for Troy. In the reverse of what you just stated, is it possible that if a village or city doesn't have an area annexed, well, like let's just say Brunersburg and Defiance or whatever, and then they have issues out there with their sewer, can the EPA require, despite their ordinance, can they require a city or a village to allow services outside their village? Because EPA has contacted me about this development before and said, in 15 or 20 years, you're going to be taking that on anyway, because that's going to be the next logical step for them if it got big enough and, resources there were limited or whatever, infrastructure was failing. They always look to the nearest municipal.
Somebody's got to provide it, and the classic example of that is over there at the Ayersville, with the Ayersville Water and Sewer District, and they formed that, and somebody had to provide it, and then it was a question of, were they going to form their own district, or was Defiance just going to leak out this way, and maybe Napoleon or somebody leak back and catch it? And I think and I don't know the history on it as good as I probably should, but I know obviously there's been a lot of problems with the Ayersville Sewer District, and so some of those people that technically were within the original district decided to contact Defiance and say, hey, we'd rather be hooked up with you than we would be with Ayersville because of the cost and everything like that. And the EPA's mandate basically is somebody's got to service them if it comes to that point. In the area right now that should be of concern potentially maybe is Gordon Creek. Because the county, they have they're a separate closed system. And at some point, the EPA, and I think that's why the county's tried to do everything they could over the years to get us to try and annex them to pass it off.
And that's another thing
Yeah.
in my little rant about
Yeah.
out there. We've got to put all our utilities down Industrial Drive.
Absolutely. We know. They
That
know.
cost is coming up, and we got an easement through them to hook Gordon Creek into us.
But I guess that's not a direct answer to your question, but yes, there is always a chance, depending on what happens in the
Okay.
future, that the EPA could have come a knocking and say, hey, we need you to do whatever.
okay. Any other questions for Sheila? Thank you, Sheila. Any other committees that want to give a report on anything? Okay,
Where are we at with that ordinance number 3? We're just dropping it?
well,
No, they got it to me last week, and so I'm working, like I said, you can't just do a blanket, no utilities, but, I could bring a proposed ordinance back, or at least circulate it to you guys first, is what my intention would be to the committee, and see who's got, like we did on something else. Send it around, and out on Haver Drive, in the easement area where we did that, had to leave it undisturbed and everything like that. I came up with something, circulated it, you guys made comments, and then we brought it back to the full council for vote.
and is there anybody from Park? Val's not here? No. But did we not have signs at one time for,
We're taking those back, yeah. I already talked to Val and Gary. We're gonna get all the signs made for
Yeah,
them.
used to have sign, yeah.
Yeah, the high vis one, so they'll be, appropriate looking, but we'll take care of that.
okay.
okay. Well, how how about if we go on to the administrator's report?
How about that?
You're on.
I don't know if you had time to read my report. I'll try to hit some highlights. The pre-con meeting was held for that Adventure Alley restroom project for the park, and that went well. Borderline Construction was there, Mr. Miller. The footer construction was a concern of yours. That's going back to the state. Andy seemed to believe, this is the guy from Meyer Bates, the architectural firm, seemed to believe that won't be a problem getting these minor changes in. Your vinyl shakes.
Vinyl shakes weren't my report.
Well, the front, remember the front had the brick going all the way up and then instead of a decorative all the way across? He don't think that'll be a problem. And the textured brick on the outside, such as like on the side of McDonald's instead of just, he didn't think that would be a problem either. The other thing was motion lights that, go on and off as you come in and out to save electricity. Those are already in the specs, but no one was sure. So, at any rate, he was supposed to start this week. So,
How much was that gonna add to the project? I mean, with all those, it sounds like change orders.
not a whole lot.
Who was gonna start? Miller?
Yeah. He said his intention was to start this week, so. He has to start by February 18th under the conditions in terms of the grant. So, good luck out there freezing.
Yeah, yeah.
What constitutes starting?
Putting a shovel in the ground.
Yeah, I hope he's not doing pours when it's freezing hard.
Right. The other thing I wanted to address was the Chicago Avenue. That's going to be kind of our priority now, now that it's been kicked back to us. I got a letter from EPA. They're going to grant us to put it into phase 2 as long as I write another letter, give them their $200. And this was unbeknownst to me, and I found it when I was starting to read and dig into that thing called the long-term control plan that's like that thick. The reason there was a pond suggested was because the engineers at the time stated they felt that 28 acres back over there would be too much for the 24-inch tile, and we totally disagree with that, so we need to get another opinion. Because there's a ridge back there, and a lot of that falls right to the creek that Hidden Brook goes into and everything else. It doesn't all go down Chicago Avenue, so we have to come up with a plan or something for EPA that says a rebuttal to the original engineer's request. And I don't know if that was suggested that way by the engineering firm for ease of construction or what. I have no idea. But
With a simple topography map, take care of that.
yeah, I know. And I think that's what I'm going to submit to as a sample topography map. And there's a couple different ways we could get into that tile. Either go out to Chicago and then down and cut over, or go maybe right through the field if we could get an easement back there, so. Because I believe it starts and there's a manhole right in our wastewater superintendent's backyard. There's a manhole back there, right?
Catch basin.
A catch basin, okay. So anyway,
Doesn't that go down and run across the back of Schmidt and the bowling alley and everything?
Yeah, it comes in, well, if you go around the corner of Westwood Court, I guess, it comes back through my backyard and turns, then goes over through Schmidt and goes out that direction over into that line Schmidt. That's where it empties into.
so the good news is, we'll have time to get all this planned properly and done to the best, hopefully the lowest cost too, because it's not going to be cheap. And have time to get grants and loans and whatnot, like we've done in the past. But the bad news is that's a key area, that's a high priority project, and it's going to get pushed back, obviously, so. And, let's see. I wanted to make an announcement that I would suggest and plead with the public to cease and desist from flushing your loosely woven fabric wipes, those things that are so-called flushable. They're not flushable. They don't dissolve. They cause problems in the sewer system. They mess up grinder pumps. They plug up pipes. It's just an advertising ploy. They are not flushable. They are more loosely woven than baby wipes, but that kind of stuff really messes with the city or village's infrastructure.
Before, we asked them not to flush their underwear down.
I would say, I thought Kent was back for a second when he started there. I thought it was his yearly, flush your underwear.
And finally, Commodities Food Bank is not this Thursday. Food Bank is next Thursday, the 15th. Then we will have it posted at the garage where people come for their packages. So Food Bank is the 15th. That's all I have, Mayor.
Does anyone have any questions for the administrator? Thank you.
You're welcome.
I know we're keeping you busy.
How's the lights coming at Haver Drive? We've had that on there about every meeting.
Oh, yeah, I wondered that too.
Seen it a couple of.
Because we're getting like one every 2 weeks, it seems like, so I just keep adding it. No, hopefully they'll get going quickly. There's 3 now? 3 lights out there?
2.
It's just
That
2?
Directional bore, they've got all the directional bores in,
Okay.
with
Might
2
have to
lights.
drive home and see that tonight.
2. I can't confirm nor deny that they have bases, and
I don't think they have bases.
I
Thought
I
that
did
was
s-
the deal.
I just don't
oh,
think.
we're not paying for
I
it.
may be wrong, but it doesn't appear.
I thought it was in the contract.
I didn't see a contract.
Oh, I didn't see any contract with it.
That's just part of the deal. They put the lights in, they
They took
maintain
them
I
out.
them.
thought it was a contract with the
I don't
underground
know.
that did it.
I don't know.
I thought things were supposed to be installed the way they came out.
Yeah.
Because that was, the big deal was because then we're not gonna have holes leaning
Cleaner.
over and everything. They were gonna be put in.
I can't say for sure, but just driving by, they went in pretty fast.
I don't think there's any cement.
You could ask them, they'll know.
Yeah, I asked Chris Postal, I haven't heard back from him yet.
Okay.
I think he's,
I don't think that was part of the underground, big,
That was-
all AEP on that one.
it was all AEP, yeah, it's as far as I can tell. But hopefully they'll be straight for at least 10 years.
I thought I seen additional cost on somebody's, where they were, not neighbors, somebody's where they were charging more for doing that. Remember the stuff that was on the.
Oh, you mean from underground?
Yeah.
That was on
Street light
quantities.
pole, Foundation to be braced, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, there was a bunch of stuff about lights and stuff they were charging additional costs for.
This part you're thinking of,
That's
that's a
the extra
decrease.
ones, the change orders.
Yeah. Change order number 2.
9,000. Was a decrease, not an increase.
But Jim can look into it, right? Give him
Yeah.
a call, just,
Yeah, just keep making phone calls.
Okay, well, we will go on to the solicitor's report.
I just have a couple of things briefly, like the stuff Sheila talked about in the ordinance committee. My intention is before the next meeting to have something circulated to you guys so that you can look at committee, not the whole, and then give me your comments and if everything. And particularly, like I said, I don't think the park thing requires an ordinance. I think we just make that the rules and publish it and get the signs up and if people are there. Now, like you said, you do have to be careful. I think I mentioned this to Sheila, and I think maybe you mentioned this in your, there's gonna be exceptions, like for instance, football games.
Right.
You know, there's gonna be people down there for those.
I think we just want to eliminate the people hanging out
I
through the
know,
night,
yeah.
parking and
Not
drinking
being an
beer.
ordinance, does that still give the chief the teeth to go in there and
Absolutely,
get
if that's the
somebody?
rule.
I
That's what-
like to see people playing basketball down at the park after dark. They got lights on to use, they got lights to use for the tennis courts. I mean, I,
Yeah, but it's those kids that he pulls in and sees at
Right.
3 o'clock in the morning.
That's what we're, yeah.
We're just getting ready to shoot.
Yeah.
To shoot what?
Oops. H-O-O-P-S. That, and then, I told Cheryl, because she had asked about it, Dennis Miller brought the revised 5-acre mill stuff to me on Friday, and I signed it. I had asked him to make a couple of revisions that he made. I guess I didn't confirm with him, it was late in the day on Friday. I presumed that sometime this week he was gonna be making contact with the 5-acre mill people to get out here, because he usually comes out here to do closings, and then he would get Diane's signature. But when you see those, Diane, my signature approving it should already be on all the documents,
Okay.
the couple that require it.
Okay. Alrighty.
That should be, I know that they wanna get that money and get going.
Are we able to do anything with the Sherwood Telephone Company at this time?
The Sherwood,
Or not telephone company,
not at
Sherwood
this
Income
time,
Tax?
but
Sherwood Income
soon,
Tax?
soon. not at
Okay,
this time.
alrighty. Anything else for Troy?
I think Cheryl, I don't know who was gonna bring it up. I asked them to, you're gonna bring it up, Scott. I just asked that they take a vote to approve Diane signing that, was all. I had told you by email before that I thought it was okay, but I just wanted them to okay it.
So he's gonna bring it up?
I think so.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Troy. So we'll go on to the department heads. Police Chief Stickney?
First, thank you all very much for taking me off probation. I appreciate it. Second thing we have is the hiring of the new officer. We had 5 applications. 2 of those people withdrew from the full-time, wanting full-time positions. The remaining, we took the 2 what we felt were the best applicants before the Police Fire EMS Committee, and they had an opportunity to ask them questions, and out of those, we decided that Tyler Maynard was the best candidate, and that was recommended to the mayor, I believe at that time. I would ask that she would then recommend to the rest of the council to hire him officially at this time. If you have any questions about him, he was supposed to be here tonight, but there was a scheduling mix-up and he wasn't able to make it. So if you have any questions about him, I'd be happy to try and answer them. I can tell you that
Subject to that.
I can take, yeah, well, yeah, subject to passing the physical and requirements
Background
like
check.
background check. He's already had a background check. He went to school locally in Stryker. He has a 2-year college degree in criminal justice. He is OPATA certified. He's done ride-alongs with the Toledo Police Department and an internship with the Sylvania Police Department. He's very interested in becoming involved in community activities. His mother was in law enforcement, and like I said, he's a very bright individual, very eager to get started. He is, of course, new, very green, doesn't have any full-time experience anywhere as a police officer. But we think that would be actually kind of an advantage because he won't have learned any bad habits and he'll be learning everything the way we do it here.
Any questions? I would recommend that we hire Tyler Maynard as a full-time police officer, pending good drug screen, physical background check. Start as a patrolman 2.
I support the mayor's wishes.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Jones?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Barth?
Yes.
Bassett?
Yes.
Baker?
Yep.
Are you still on shore? Or does that bring you back to where you?
That will bring us back to 8 full-time.
Okay.
And I did have a report that I gave you all prior to the meeting. We'll try to be doing this monthly, giving you some figures, some ideas of what our activities have been. But you can see by looking down at the bottom of that sheet, as far as our activity goes, we're up from last year, even though last year was a very busy year for us. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them for you.
I like this report.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's really nice. No questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
I'll reiterate, Cody, that, thank you for your service. You've done a great job. We're sorry to see you go. We're happy for your new job that you're going to, and
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council.
What would it take to keep you?
I already tried it, Ron.
But he's gonna work part-time for
He's still gonna
weekends.
stay on volunteers at
Which is
fire department.
huge.
He'll fill in where he can on EMS.
Oh, we appreciate that, for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Should have been a year-end report in your packet, finally. Any questions on that?
Very nice job.
We appreciate the talented officers you have or volunteers that you have that can save the village by doing some of our repairs on our trucks.
Yes, they're very appreciative. In fact, I was talking to one of them today, he's got a few other things he wants to do, and I said, okay,
That's really great,
saving us tons of money by
Yeah.
doing stuff ourselves.
yeah. Your reports are good?
The January report isn't correct. The new software, I'm still learning it. Found out today I had to do some other things before it was completed. We're up to 40 runs in January. That's fire and EMS together. And I'd like council's blessing on the contract for the air pack grant. Submitting for the grant.
Need a motion. I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Baker?
Yes.
Bassett?
Yes.
Barth?
Yes.
Beverly?
Definitely.
Jones?
Yes.
I think we'll know by September, mid-September.
What's that?
when we came.
Great.
It's a federal government deal, so I think that's when it's supposed to be, but we'll find out.
Hopefully we'll get
I
that.
will.
Any other questions?
No other questions, I guess. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Do we have any last words of wisdom from our EMS chief?
I do have one applicant for an EMT volunteer position. She has been a nurse for several years. I think she said about 15-ish. She is not an EMT basic at this time, so she would have to go through class. So I would like a recommendation from the mayor to hire Rachel Schaefer as a volunteer, pending background check, drug screen, and physical.
Where's Rachel from?
I don't know where she's originally from. She currently lives in Hicksville and works full-time in Fort Wayne.
Okay. Well, I would move to, or I would recommend hiring her, and getting her training taken care of.
Thank you, Mayor.
Do we still have them sign a form that if they don't complete the class?
Yeah,
they
there will
lose
be
their
it's a year-long contract. We're looking at a class that'll start in April for
That's, how long's the class for?
roughly 6 months. It'll be done, I think they're planning the end of September.
Great. I made the recommendation.
Make the motion for the mayor's recommendation to hire Rachel.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Baker?
Yes.
Bassett?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Barth?
Yes. All right, quick question. With you leaving, and we're eventually gonna miss you, Cody, you did a great job.
Thank you.
Is that gonna put a real strain on the other two full-times that we have, I think Bob and Bruce, or are we able to work out the schedule with?
Well, there's gonna be some scheduling issues for a little bit. We are definitely gonna need another full-time EMT, to replace me as far as run volume.
I know you guys are get spread pretty thin at times,
Yeah.
even with the staffing you do have. and-
Yeah, we'll definitely need the one more full-time, and then, as I was explaining to PFE earlier, we've got another month and a half, and we're gonna have 2 more EMTs coming on, and then with Rachel later this year, that'll really help.
Do we need to vote on that? I don't think we, on advertising for another EMT, I don't think we,
Oh, that's just in the regulations or whatever, get advertised. The question is,
Okay.
you advertise for a chief and advertise for a full-time EMT. That way, if, just presuming somebody that's currently there wants to be the chief, you still need the EMT.
right.
Right.
So we don't have to, just procedure, okay.
Will you be taking care of that advertising?
Yes,
Okay. Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Cody.
We'll miss you.
Thank you, Cody. Yeah, thanks.
No park director here, so I guess we will skip that. We will go to the fiscal officer's report. Trying to keep up with her paperwork.
Yeah, all the paperwork on the desk tonight was from me. You have your January cash report, the January income tax, utility collections, mayor's court, police department for January. You have the franchise fee report for Mediacom. There's a notice that the OML sent out that I gave everyone a copy of about some new bill that's been introduced about small cell wireless infrastructure that we need to
You know,
keep on top of.
do you all get the Ohio Mississippi Legislative Bulletin? Okay. Because
The
you're not
STM,
answering.
whatever.
I thought that's what was.
It's like with MediaCom, we're stuck with them because the state took over and licensed them.
Right.
So we can't say we don't like you, we're going to with another company. We can't. We have no choice. Now they want to do that with this. Same, we'll be in the same boat.
They just want to come up, if they want to put, you know, small cell wireless infrastructure stuff on our poles uptown anywhere we want, no matter how big or how ugly or anything else, you know, they'll just have the right to go stick them anywhere. And I don't really care to have people make that decision about sticking stuff on our poles myself.
And my paperwork from,
Stop.
Contact your legislators.
yep, that's what that's for. I put in the packet, some of this stuff I only got at 4 o'clock this afternoon, so that's why it's just to take home and read. But we did get the substantial completion and warranty on Clearview and Bryan, Maine, which is that one from EMHT. Jones and Henry want to bump their contract $6,600. That's that letter. And you have got 7 change orders on the North Main Waterline project that have to be approved. Those were my 4 o'clocks. And then the final that I've been waiting for is the Clearview subdivision sewer project. The water we just paid. The sewer was separate because it's OPWC. And this is their final, but with the final came a change order for $24,000. So, that has to be approved.
Jim, have you had time to look at these at all?
No, I only got them at 4
This all
o'clock.
came today.
Yeah.
All of these final documents came today.
Yeah. And so, they're for everybody to look at, to be approved, and they're all already listed on your paperwork.
Okay.
The ones that are highlighted have been, the paperwork's done. I'm just waiting for the actual money to come in. And then the same thing on this page. This is their extra that they want, the $6,600. It'll be reimbursed. But it has to be approved before we can get it reimbursed.
As I recall, that was a little controversial, wasn't it?
Yes,
The
it
Jones and
was.
Henry $6,000.
Yeah, they had to move some money around to get that.
We have a change order that balances it out. It's not going to
Right.
make our contract higher, but they have to move the money around at OWDA, and they don't do that without EPA approval. So I'm waiting on EPA paperwork.
And they had to go to the EPA to get that done.
But they're charging, I've seen where they're charging, to supervise them to take non-compacted material out, put it back in and compact it. That's the contractor's job to compact it.
That's why it has to be approved. And so, I just want everybody to peruse it, and then somebody can approve it and let me know, or not approve it, whichever.
Are we okay waiting a couple weeks for the next council meeting, or?
I have to wait for the EPA anyway.
Okay, all righty,
Contractor.
all right, great.
Engineer.
Okay, everybody, make sure that you
Check it out.
know what's going on.
And if you have any questions, because all the paperwork is different, holler at me and I'll tell you what it means, if I know. And that's all I have. The last piece of paper belongs to the mayor.
The last piece of paper belongs to the mayor. Let me think about this. Are you talking about this?
No. The commissioners. Their demolition program.
Oh, okay. There's so many papers. I've got more papers than that, sorry. So, I told you this a couple weeks ago that the Defiance County Commissioners are doing the community-wide demolition program again another year. And nominations are due by Thursday, March 1st. And we asked if anybody had any homes or structures, I'll say, I'm not sure, homes, I think I need to say homes, that they might have for suggesting to be demolished, if they contact Mike Bailey at the zoning office.
Mayor, would Gog Avenue project, would that fit in now?
The basement? I don't know. But we have a person that stepped forward and said there was a house on East Arthur Street, down by the railroad tracks, that would fit this, into this demolition program. So we know we have one. Now, a couple years ago, the county commissioners were gonna allow us to have the Hicksville Township's demolition project, but we didn't have a second house, so we didn't use it. I do not know if the county commissioners would allow us to have Hicksville Township's this year, or if Hicksville Township's actually gonna use it. But I'll try to find out if Hicksville Township has one, and if they're not gonna use it, if we can use it. We didn't have a house.
There's quite a few that could use a good demolition, but
Yeah.
maybe the owners don't agree with it.
We didn't have a house last year, we lost
There's
it.
people that still in it, right? Refresh my memory, once this project is intact and they do demolition of a house, where's the property go after that? Is it,
The property owner remains the owner of the property. Yeah, there's, yeah.
The conditions that have to be met, I thought were really stringent. I mean, the roof has to be falling in and just, it has to be like in pretty bad shape. So aesthetically, you can look at a home and say, well, that place is a dump, but it may not meet the conditions of
Right.
this, the county's ordinance or stipulations.
Can
So,
I ask you this, Mayor? This is more for my own benefit. Like with Herbie Johnson, the village paid for that, and so that's, like if somebody was gonna buy Herbie's property, that's on there as a tax lien?
that is supposed to be on his property taxes, but they only, we certify those every September, but Cheryl has notified the county auditor that we have that we plan to put that on in September, so if they should try to sell that property, hopefully the county auditor will have a light bulb come on and say, oh, Hicksville's owed some money for that. We have had a problem in the past or two about that, though.
Mowing assessments we have.
Yeah,
We mowed all summer and then the house gets foreclosed on in September and they don't go on until October or whatever, and the new owner's not responsible.
so going forward then, I don't know if I can explain this. There's a Defiance County Drug-Free Coalition, of which we are a member. And the City of Defiance Council is having a lot of controversy with themselves over whether to allow a medical marijuana facility in Defiance. And the Defiance County Drug-Free Coalition called me on Friday to see if they could count on the Village of Hicksville to support them in fighting that facility in Defiance, the concept of allowing a facility in Defiance, because all the information that, they're getting from all their sources is that, crime increases when one of those are in the area, and that there's no benefit to having it. So, as a council, do you want to vote to support the Defiance County Drug-Free Coalition and be anti-medical marijuana facility in Defiance.
And just to clarify, it's not a particular, there is one that's been suggested, but the whole deal over in Defiance with the city had been proposed well before anybody stepped forward and said, oh, I want to put one in the city. I mean, that was generally going on to be, it had already been through like planning commission and everything. And what they did was, right before the end of the year, they passed an ordinance as authorized by the revised code sections. The revised code sections that implemented the medical marijuana law, which hasn't fully been implemented yet because the health department and some other people have to come up with some regulations which would regulate not only the end users of the medical marijuana, in other words, the prescription cards and doctors and everything, but also the grow facilities, the dispensaries, or those regulations have not been finalized yet. So even though it's technically been in effect for a while now, nobody's really authorized to prescribe, to receive,
Right.
to grow, to dispense yet because the final regs aren't in. But the law authorizes individual communities to pass legislation banning those, all of those things, including the growing facilities, the, for lack of a better term, the wholesale warehouses and the end line dispensaries. That same section authorizes the individual communities to do that. So in late December, I believe, Defiance passed in the form of like a zoning ordinance that barred those facilities within the city of Defiance. At about the same time that final vote was to be taken, a gentleman who was originally from Defiance, doesn't live there anymore, but owns some property in Defiance, came to council and indicated that he was interested, and he had one of the licenses through the state that they were starting to give out. I think if you saw in the paper, they gave out the licenses for the farming operations across the state, and they were doing the same thing. There's pretty rigid requirements in order to get any of the type of licenses that you needed, and that he was interested in Defiance. So then it of course kind of morphed into, hey, they're passing this to prevent one person from doing it. In reality, that was already in the works before he ever surfaced. And so in the end, they did pass that. I know, just in case anybody's interested, tomorrow at the Defiance City Council meeting, they're having like a study session on the same topic again. I mean, they had planning commission meetings, I think at least, I was present at one of them, but at least 2 city council meetings where it was thoroughly addressed by members of the community, members of law enforcement, medical professionals and everything. They're gonna kind of revisit that, I think, again tomorrow some.
Is that a regular council meeting?
It's a study session
it's a
at a
study
regular
session.
council meeting.
Oh,
So
and
they
a
have
regular
they have
council
their
meeting.
study
Okay.
sessions as part of, oftentimes it is almost the entire council meeting, but they have that as part of their regular council meeting tomorrow, at the request of one of the council people asked, just not saying that they're gonna try and undo what was done or whatever, but just to see where things stand. And I think that was partly why the Drug-Free Coalition, I don't know if that was a regular meeting they had or if it was called specially to address, supporting that. But that's where it stands in Defiance, at least, is they've already passed something. It's being not reconsidered necessarily at this point, but revisited just for talking purposes.
They've had a change of council members, so that.
They have, yeah. I mean, a couple new who have been on before, and that's kind of what triggered it, I think, is, hey, we got a couple new opinions on here. Let's see if everybody still feels the same way, type of thing.
Already have an ordinance like that?
What's that?
We do not.
Already have an ordinance like that?
We do not.
We do not.
Didn't they pass something when they had that spice shop? or
That was
whatever?
different. That was specifically aimed at the spice and the, I forget the term, but the marijuana,
Was it
counterfeit
Case of-
marijuana.
Case of-
I think Cheryl has shared information in the past from the Ohio Municipal League that suggested that if you don't really have an interest of having this in your community, you should get some
Right.
legislation passed.
Right.
But at this time, I would just like to know if council wants to support the Defiance County Drug-Free Coalition and take a stand on it, or if you want to stay neutral.
I would vote to stay neutral. the stuff's out there. I mean, look at some of the states that have made it legal for medical. Colorado and California, some of those, my God, look at the tax revenue that comes off of that. I mean, that's better than having GM come into your town and build a factory.
Sad
And it's
but
out
true.
there. It's better to be through a licensed, state licensed operation than little Billy over here in the alley selling it to your kid.
I know, I'd like to support it. I think we have enough drug problems here in the town of Hicksville.
I agree.
I don't like the idea of having another reason to have it readily available.
The school has also approached me about supporting the city of Defiance too, and the Defiance County Drug Coalition. That came from the school. I was called to go out there and meet with them last week, and I did. And they asked us to support it also.
So
If that makes any
Need a
difference.
motion to vote on it?
Yeah, probably, and if it makes any difference from my end as the person that prosecutes the misdemeanor crimes, and I think the police chief will probably back this up, a very large percentage of all the crimes, and that includes the non-drug related crimes, often have some form of drug element attached to it. Is that fair to say? Whether it's violent, domestic violence, assaults,
Yeah.
operating vehicles under the influence isn't always just alcohol anymore. It's maybe not 50-50, but it's a pretty high percentages.
You have to
Other
find
places.
somebody
But this is a medical.
violent seizure. That ain't gonna
This is
happen.
totally different than just street drugs. This is a medical thing.
But I'm
This is
told
not-
it brings crime to the area.
How?
Yeah.
The biggest concern is that they're all cash businesses because marijuana is still illegal under federal law. So most, and I stress most because I think I've been told there are a couple banks out there that have kind of said screw it. But most federally insured financial institutions aren't authorized to take money that's generated from the sale, anything related to marijuana use. So for instance, in Colorado, it's all cash business. And so they've had problems with robberies and things of that nature, even though the security is unbelievable. And it's not really been robberies like people are breaking in to steal a few pot
Right.
plants or whatever. It's, they got huge reserves of cash that they gotta do something with, and what do they do with it? And that's been a big problem all over, to the point where I even read a news article, I think it was in San Francisco, where maybe I think they have legalized it just in the city of San Francisco, and all of California now. Their concern out of it is they want a piece of the pie, so they are thinking about chartering their own San Francisco bank to handle, basically to launder's not the proper, but they handle the money that's generated from the marijuana sales for a fee to the, in order to do it. But that's the where the crime, aspect comes up with the location of the dispensaries. And I will tell you, it's easy to say, and this is just one person's opinion, that's not even basically a legal background, but I have had to prosecute a few people who thought they had the right to medically possess marijuana in the state of Ohio, because there's a doctor up in Toledo who is, even though they've not been authorized, is writing some prescriptions, and these people are able to fill the prescriptions up in Toledo, or in Michigan, where it is legal, and then they come here and they got their card, it's got the, it looks all official, I saw the card right in my office. And it looks all official and everything, and what I will tell you, my limited contact with them, it is people that want to recreationally use marijuana that are trying to use this as a gateway, as an excuse to be able to do it. There are people out there that legitimately want to use it medically, there's no doubt about that.
Yes.
All across the country, there's all types of studies and everything, but if you read the Ohio Revised Code on it, what people don't understand, a lot of people, the ones that really have studied it know it is, the law does not authorize people to smoke marijuana, to ingest, marijuana in the ways that most of us that are of a certain age or older think of it, or it is oils, it is edibles, it is things of that nature. It's not like you got your medical prescription card and you can walk around with a bunch of rolling papers and some raw marijuana and a grinder and, hey, it's.
And I think
live
that's
free.
what a lot of people think.
And I think there are people that are
Yes.
supporting the law that think that's what it's gonna allow them to do, and that's not what it allows to do. And if you read the language of it, it's more for the medicinal benefits, which I guess there's medically, if you ask the doctors, they'll say there's never been any proven medical benefits. But if you talk to the people that have had medical problems and use it, they'll swear up and down that there have been.
I did a lot of research on that oil that is supposed to cure cancer,
Yeah.
and by God, they made a believer out of me.
Yeah. And see, there's also different types of oils, because they have CBD oil that doesn't contain the stuff that makes you high,
Yeah.
basically.
Right.
And there are different states that allow that but don't allow the other things. So there's all types of regulations, and I think if you paid any attention, it's probably president specific, but under the current president, the Attorney General has started to stress and has taken an affirmative action in those states that have legalized marijuana to start enforcing the federal marijuana law, so.
So is there anyone that would like to second Ron Beverly's motion to remain neutral? Did you have something to
Is he
say?
neutral? I thought-
Beverly was.
He moved to remain neutral. Any other
I
discussion?
just had a question with all, we'll talk a little bit about this. This umbrella of medicinal purposes, isn't that kind of a foothold or getting their foot in the door? Because there's a big push right now to legalize this in Ohio. And once they're established and they got
This
the
is
production.
personal opinion. You remember the last time before this got approved, there was a strong push to get on the ballot to approve the recreational use of marijuana. So I think the people in Columbus said, we can't allow that to happen.
Right.
Why don't we pass something that's recreational light, that we can regulate, that we can decide, rather than have a constitutional amendment on it, and we'll sell that to the people, and we can get enough people on board to defeat that move for the constitutional amendment. I think, again, I wasn't in those meetings, I can't speak for those people that voted on it, but I think that's what they were doing, is trying to head off the recreational movement. And so, yeah, there is some belief probably in the people that support it heavily, that at some point, if you allow this, you're one step down the road from recreational marijuana.
Probably.
Chief, do you have an opinion or anything you'd like to step to the podium and say? I'm just asking, if you have if there's any thoughts floating around in your head about that?
None.
Absolutely nothing. Yeah, I have heard the anecdotal evidence that some people do benefit from the medical marijuana. They claim that they get the benefit only if they smoke it. But once again, that's totally anecdotal. The medical research that's been done, like Troy had already said, says that's not the case, that there's been no big evidence that this shows. But now we have it. I heard the same thing he did also, that the legislators decided they better get on board with something while they still could before the recreational before there was a big push to legalize it for recreational use. So they came up with what they've got. I don't think it's perfect, but they do have something on the books now. We run into a lot of people right now who are thinking that it's legal right now as long as they're using it for medical use. It's tough enough to try and enforce the laws we have now without making it easier for them to do it by having it be right here. We're running into a lot of problems right now with people taking marijuana and putting all sorts of nasty stuff in it so when people get the marijuana and try to smoke it or whatever, they're not just getting marijuana, they're getting all sorts of other things in there, some things that are deadly. It's going to be harder for our officers to handle those situations because it gets to be dangerous for us in law enforcement. They put substances called fentanyl in it that really increases the potency. It does a whole different thing to it. And that stuff, you will have people overdosing and dying from just smoking a marijuana cigarette. The whole idea of taking marijuana or any drug that has been made illegal or has been illegal for a long time and suddenly making it legal is going to cause problems. It just is. The drugs were made illegal for a reason. I don't think there's anything that's really changed in any of those reasons.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion by Ron Beverly to remain neutral. Does anyone care to second it?
I do. I think we need to be much more educated on this. This is a medical thing. This is like a prescription. You probably have taken painkillers. It's no different when it's medical. You're talking recreational.
Well,
You're talking
there's one-
about going uptown and buying it off the street.
But there's one thing you have to remember, a lot of drugs that are taken are supposed to be taken for medical reasons.
Exactly.
Are now taken for
Exactly.
illicit reasons.
That's why we have the opioid problem.
So do we start banning pain relievers across the board then?
Well, they've cut
They're
down,
used?
they've really cut down and really made a push to cut back on
Yeah, but you
prescriptions
don't
that
see
are being
people saying,
allowed.
we're not going to allow any doctor in this village to operate if he prescribes OxyContin.
There are penalties right now that are being enforced by the medical administrations for doctors that do prescribe opioids too much. They're
Well,
really
yeah,
being
but-
restricted because of the abuse of those prescriptions by both doctors and patients.
But you don't see them banning them entirely.
They're already banned as far as illegal use goes.
Yeah, we're not talking about illegal use, we're talking about something that is legal.
Well, but the difference is marijuana is listed as a Schedule I controlled substance in the Controlled Substances Act, which is federal law, and OxyContin isn't. That's the difference. It's illegal under federal law.
May we have roll call, please?
Baker?
What are we doing here?
We are,
You second
Neutral.
Just remain neutral.
No, I said yeah, remain neutral.
So you're voting yes,
I want to remain neutral.
That's yes.
which is yes.
Bassett?
No.
Barth?
No.
Beverly?
Neutral.
Jones?
Yes.
No.
I just think, really, we don't know enough about this to be voting anything. I think this is a waste of time right here. I think we're just trying to get people's opinion on how we feel about it.
So we need a motion to
Support.
support, and I'll make that motion. Is that what we need?
That's all
I'll
over
second-
town.
I'll second
I mean,
that
you
to
go
the
any
support of
place
the
you
Defiance
want to
County
in town,
Drug
buy
Free
whatever you
Coalition.
want.
You what?
did you make a motion to,
Commission.
okay, and he seconded, this is to support the Defiance County Drug-Free Coalition. Roll call, please.
Baker?
Yes.
Bassett?
Yes.
Barth?
Yes.
Beverly? Jones?
I'm gonna say,
It's
I'm
a
gonna
trick.
say,
Trick.
sure, because, I mean, I still think we should remain neutral, but I don't want, the whole county of Defiance thinking I'm a hothead or something. But,
Well, the medical people will sure appreciate it.
Well, it's always something.
Do you
to
guys know
revisit.
anybody that
Yeah,
has, that has used it? Do you know, have you talked and say, we need to have somebody come in here that needs this stuff.
You may line that up.
Chief, you get a few names.
That's your recreational.
When I was a younger fella, I seen a lot of rock and roll concerts and stuff like that, and I never seen anybody smoke marijuana and jump out of a four-story window. But I seen some guys on heroin and stuff. I didn't see them, but I heard about it. And I'm sure the police chief would rather grab a hold of a guy that had just smoked a little bit of marijuana, plain old marijuana, as opposed to somebody who'd been out there spaced out on some crack or something, where he takes a sledgehammer to even slow him down.
They're putting that stuff in the marijuana now, though.
That's why it needs to get controlled.
But what they're talking about doing that's being made legal and controlled is not gonna be available for that use. That's what Troy said, it's gonna be in oils and other methods, but it won't be in something.
That's the part I'm for.
Right.
I'm all
Right.
for
I'm
the
for the
oils
medical.
that cure cancer and
Right.
things like that.
You got
And
it.
the problem with your example though is there's I won't say never, but very rarely has there ever been somebody that's doing heroin or doing crack that didn't start drinking and smoking a little weed. They don't just jump right into heroin. They might go from OxyContin to heroin or something because they had a pain, but your street drugs or whatever, nobody just woke up one day
There's
and
no
said,
way in the
"Hey,
world
I'm
that
gonna shoot up some
anybody is
heroin."
ever gonna convince me that marijuana is a gateway drug. Not gonna happen.
Absolutely is.
Okay, well, we're gonna move on. As Sheila said, we can, and Eric, we can always revisit this topic. We are going on to an update on the CRA membership. Did Jerry Hayes send this to the state for approval, or who did? Jerry did? Jerry is? Okay. Now, I have my two names of people who said that the mayor appoints. Does council have their two names? Well, I'll just tell you. I've got Taylor Klepper, Jim Seiler, and Michael Mazur called me and offered to be on it. So we need, if you're okay with those three names, we need a fourth person. So get on the horn, find a fourth person for this committee, okay? And
And the job of this committee will be to just look at the applications and see if they qualify and see if it's.
yes,
And
That's
for
right.
the commercial applications, there is a negotiation on each individual application.
like to negotiate.
okay.
So,
So again, in the legislative bulletin today from OML, House Bill 175 I found really interesting because, you know, we have what I'll call an urban farmer in town, and the neighbors aren't very happy, and that's just gardening. So listen to this one. The sponsored by Representative Brinkman of Mount Lookout. This bill would allow an owner of residential property to keep, harbor, breed, maintain small livestock on the property and prohibit zoning authorities from regulating certain agricultural activities conducted on residential property for non-commercial purposes. During its second hearing before the House Agriculture and Rural Development Committee, 23 witnesses gave or submitted proponent testimony in support of the bill. Since the bill violates home rule by overriding local control, the league is opposed to the bill. And I just think that's kind of interesting because, like I said, we've got a neighborhood that's got an urban gardener there and the neighbors don't like it, but yet the state's trying to allow us to have livestock, you know, and personally,
Marijuana smoking donkeys.
you know, I like livestock myself, and I would probably be one of those people that would like to have livestock at my house, but not everybody likes that. So then, the long-awaited state of the village, I feel like I wrote a book, but, you know, but we'll get through it here, you know. I'd like to start off by saying thank you to each and every person that lives, works, visits, and loves our community. I feel so blessed to be able to interact with you each day. I'm very proud of the success we are able to maintain in Hicksville, thanks to all of you. I'm delighted to report that our industrial base is continuing to grow. Sherwood Mutual Telephone Company moved to Hicksville and will offer cable, telephone, and internet service in the near future. A lot of our local industries have expanded or are in the process of expanding. Jerry Hayes of the Economic Development Office has been very instrumental in helping Hicksville businesses and industries obtain incentives to help with growth. I held 2 business and industry meetings that were well attended. We discussed how to solve problems with telephone internet services at these businesses and industries, growth, a lack of employees, need for training, and how to retain employees. It was nice to have county and state officials in attendance also. We've also been blessed with a thriving business district that remains dedicated to our community. The local restaurants are a draw. Two Bandits Brewing, along with Casa Grande and the Clubhouse, were new to the area in 2017. Numerous people from out of town came to Hicksville to enjoy our establishments and commented about how lucky we are to have our storefronts full. The Christmas cruise through brought a lot of people to Hicksville and helped the local economy in many ways. This is an example of people dedicated to Hicksville. Community reinvestment area legislation was passed. This legislation establishes designated areas in the community that may qualify for property tax exemptions resulting from improvements to real property. Applications to qualify for an exemption must be filled out in advance of the improvement. We're hoping this will encourage property owners to build new homes or do renovations to properties that may otherwise deteriorate. I'm also looking for residents to serve on the committee. Residents saw a change in their utility bills. An upgrade with our utility software allowed us to change from a postcard size bill to an 8.5 by 11 paper that gives us some space to add messages. The Village of Hicksville joined other Defiance County local governments to become transparency leaders by signing up with the OhioCheckbook.com. This allows anyone to do a search on your computer to see a record of all the spending that the village does. We completed the Phase 1 sewer separation projects as mandated by the Ohio EPA. The projects amounted to millions of dollars. Fortunately, we have received $3.4 million in grants and loans to help us pay for those projects. Our debt retirement appears to be about $470,000 per year right now. Whirler began collecting our refuse and recyclables in December. I am told that approximately 40% of the residents are recycling. I am hearing positive comments about recycling and a couple negatives about the change in general. 2017 saw a change in department heads. Monty Ballinger retired as our chief of police, and Kent Miller retired as village administrator. We also wished longtime police officer Steve Talbot a happy retirement. Mike Headley's term on the village council ended. Their dedication to the village was obvious and greatly appreciated. We welcomed our new chief of police, Kirk Stickney, and village administrator James Brown, along with several new police officers. The nuisance board continues to meet as necessary to take action on properties that have violations to our local code. One home was torn down with the property owner's permission. We have a rather large project on High Street. The owner was given until the end of June to get it cleaned up. The state of Ohio has mandated some changes to our local income tax rules the past couple years. Ohio cities and villages continue to push back as we refer to home rule. Home rule involves the authority of a local government to prevent state government intervention with its operations. The extent of its power, however, is subject to limitations prescribed by state constitution and statutes. The state of Ohio is currently involved in a lawsuit with many of the cities and towns and villages in Ohio to prevent them from taking home rule away from us. Hicksville continues to have a shortage of volunteer EMTs. It is still my desire to get first responders trained to help relieve the pressure of our current EMTs to be on call so much. I tried to organize a plan to have Sherwood, Delaware, and Hicksville share EMT services, but failed. Even though we got a lot accomplished, we have a lot more work to do for a better Hicksville. I'd like to see younger people in the community step forward to serve on boards, committees, and our elected positions. I'm extremely happy to see our children returning to their hometown. They obviously feel a pride for Hicksville and realize the strong family values that they learned here are worthy of their own children. Keep them coming back. We can be very proud of the 8 young men that became Eagle Scouts this year, in 2017. In the words of the Eagle Scout promise, Eagles do their best each day to make their training an example, their rank and their influence county strongly for the better scouting and for better citizenship in their troop and their community and in their contacts with other people. I look forward to seeing their volunteerism and leadership skills used in our community. Soon you'll see a newly designed website that has been in the works for quite some time. It will be mobile friendly. We have other infrastructure projects to plan for. Phase 2 of the sewer separation needs to get started. We need to loop our dead-end water lines, install water and sewer lines the entire length of Industrial Drive, the new part, build a new water tower to replace the one behind the library, and build a new concession stand and restrooms at the park. And that's in addition to the new one we're working on now. We need a plan for growth, folks. People working in Hicksville are having to move or build homes in surrounding communities because we do not have enough housing. Getting some homes built would mean that more people would be sharing in the cost of infrastructure projects and would hopefully help us not have to raise utility bills often to keep up with the cost of supplying water and sewer to you. We could not have the wonderful community that we do without our local service organizations, volunteers, school, hospital, senior center, preschools, Head Start, community service center, chamber, village players, food pantries, weekly soup and sandwich suppers provided by the churches, library, park, farmers market, beautification committee, the county fair, the Huber Opera House, fitness centers, and very supportive county and state officials. What a blessing these groups are to our communities. I love to interact with positive, forward-thinking people. Some of my future goals would be a new senior center, new and remodeled housing, a splash pad, summer concert series, art and cultural events, and manufacturing camps for students. Let's continue to show pride in our community as a foundation on which stability and prosperity are based.
Very good.
Wow, that's done. You get a little pep talk out of that?
Very nice.
That was good.
Well, I guess we're ready to adjourn.
Make motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Roll call?
Baker,
Yes.
Barth,
Yes.
Bassett,
Yes.
Beverly,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.